Thank you, Ellsworth. Thank you, everybody. I'm just really humbled to be here, and thank you for all the service that you do. It's imperative, and I'm humbled to be asked to speak to you about what we do. I need to say thank you to Roseanne Sheridan, who's here today, and she hired me. I would not be at APT had she not done that 23 years ago. Thank you. So my mom used to say to me, I was a talker when I was a kid, she used to say to me, if you're going to talk that much, you better make people laugh or cry or at least think, or you better stop talking. So that's in the back of my head today as I speak to you. Thanks, Mom. I also talk really fast. So if I start to talk too fast, you can do this to slow me down. If you do this, it makes me feel terrible. So this is good. This slows me down. I'm excited to be here, so that will make me speak quickly. What I'm not going to do today is talk about all the plays we're doing at APT this year. I'm going to let you look at the brochures. They're at the front, at the table over here. I'm thrilled with the shows we're doing. I'd love to talk to each and every one of you. Please come see the work. But I'll let you look through the brochure, and if you have questions about that, I'll talk about that later. What I want to talk about today is why we do what we do. Just a little background of how we got to doing this stuff. So. Personally, when I was 19, my brother Tony found out that I had decided to change my major. So he left his work early on a Friday afternoon and flew to Ames, Iowa with my mother in tow and drugged me out of class and took me to a hotel room for the weekend to convince me that I was out of my mind. An acting major? I decided I wanted to be an actor, and he came to tell me that my quite effective need for attention should not be confused with a talent for acting. That my intelligence and my people skills and my obvious loquaciousness, which I'm sure he learned to say that to me that day, because I know he didn't know that word prior, was clearly setting me up for the law. I was going to be a lawyer, which was already a little outside the box for our truly acceptable family professions and my very large family of 16 kids. So we had produced many engineers and teachers and nurses, respectable careers, solid opportunities. They all belonged to the KCs. Nothing as trivial, sorry, they aren't in Rotary. We didn't have Rotary where I grew up, but we do now. Nothing as trivial and as self-absorbed and as absurd as acting. I cannot possibly be serious. I would never make a living. And above all else, we must be able to pay our bills and never be a burden to our parents. That was a true thing. That was a pact we all had. They did not ever deserve that, ever. I think my favorite moment over the course of that weekend, I remember at one point him looking at me and saying, okay, if I squint, you look a little like Demi Moore. Is that what this is about? Acting? I mean, this is not a thing. It's an ego trip, Brenda. It's an exercise in vanity. And you know better than that. So looking back, I have to believe he just didn't understand the theater at that point, or acting. And I choose to believe that his misguided warnings were well-intended, and also choose to believe that he was deep down really concerned that the world would not actually value me, not truly appreciate me, that my gifts would be misunderstood or misconstrued, and ultimately I would not have the life that he felt I deserved. Poor Tony. You know, what he didn't know, or he couldn't have known, was that, ironically, his dramatic concern, his fear and disapproval, his trip to Iowa to convince me of my folly was the exact thing I needed. A seminal moment. If I were going to disappoint my brother, ostensibly my father at that point in my life, the person I absolutely respected most in the world, a man of great integrity and purpose, if I were going to defy him and not heed his advice, if I was still driven to become an actor, I knew that in my heart, that was absolutely the right decision. There really wasn't any choice. Without truly understanding what acting was or what being an actor actually entailed, I was certain it was much more significant than a vanity project or an ego trip. And his challenging me, his certainty of its worthlessness, made it clear to me that I was required from that moment on to define my life as an actor and artist carefully, incontrovertibly, with integrity and with purpose. I was 19. I mean, I just really liked to sing. And I loved great costumes, and I really loved the attention. But my mom was absolutely right. I liked to make people laugh, and I liked to make them cry, and I liked to make them think. That's about all I knew at that point. And as I kept acting, I also came to understand its power. That in the safety of a dark theater, people, everyone, the audience, can be moved. Something amazing happens when they're forced to consider a character's plight. Complicated, unpredictable, unlikable, terrifying, lonely people. People unlike them, of course. People they don't like. They can see them, and it doesn't cost them anything. It's a play. But they connect with people they most likely would never have considered in their lives. And that was the very point, connection. Discovering that our specific humanity is not everyone's humanity, but it doesn't make them any less human. They have their own story. They are messy, complicated, flawed humans. Making the world wider for the audience, expanding their hearts and minds, challenging their certainty, if only for a couple of hours, was a good thing. And to attempt to make human beings understood, flawed, complicated human beings understood, even for just a little bit of time, even a little bit better, that was not an exercise in vanity. I knew that now, that acting had integrity. It had purpose. So I believe that telling stories, sharing stories, is a basic human need. We have, I believe all of us, a deep desire to comprehend the inexplicable bits of life. We all do this. Why do good people do bad things? Why do bad people do good things? Why do we do bad things? We hear of a friend's tragedy, and our first efforts, usually to comfort them, is to tell them a story about how we experience the same feelings, the same confusion, the same chaos. We tell them a story of how we are guilty of the same sins and errors. It helps them cope, right? That's why we do it. It helps us cope with the incomprehensible, with the unexpected events that we fall victim to, or even the unintended mistakes that we ourselves make. We share in the hope of finding each other, finding our common ground, our common humanity. So I think that theater is sort of therapy for the human soul. And I'm lucky enough to work at a place that has this incredible group of therapists, these actors and these artists, who believe that this is a worthy pursuit. I truly believe this is the key to our success at APT. Actors who understand the goal is infinitely simple and clear: to tell stories, great stories to a great audience. Okay, well, this is pretty heavy, right? It's probably not what you thought I was going to talk about, but because theater's fun, right? It's supposed to, look what we get to make. My poor brother, they make like little metal bits and such, and we get to make this. It looks great, right? It looks effortless, I hope, but it's not. It's not easy. It's fun, but it's hard to do. And we create these stories, these people, these lives out of nothing, out of words on a page. We create characters and worlds, human beings you believe in, you feel for, you relate to, you fall in love with, you hate. We just make them up. That sounds easy, right? But it's not like that there's a recipe out there. I mean, it's not like a half a cup of this and a half a cup of that equals resentment. Or, 2 plus 2 equals Romeo, or 4 plus 4 equals Blanche Dubois. There are no instructions on how to convey hatred, how to imply disappointment, or how to deny love, express ambition, comprehend jealousy. They're actually built from ink on a page. They live only because we believe that we can make them live, and they believe in their own importance, their significance. We believe in their truth, and we commit to it with our minds and our imagination and our voices and our bodies, our personal experiences, our pain and our joy. The story that is so clear and real when you see it, almost obvious, like it's always existed, right? But one Hamlet does not look like another. And once Hamlet closes, we will never know that story again. Not like that. That process of creation is remarkable, and it's profound, and it's fleeting. Of course, none of this works if we're not really good at what we do. It's just another bad play that you fall asleep in, and another bad play I fall asleep in. So what that takes is great actors to capture your imagination like that, to make you believe. Actors who understand how important it is to be a part of an ensemble, to be selflessly in service of a story that you want to hear. And classical actors, ones who can perform the most complicated texts and poetry and make you understand it utterly with both your mind and your heart, make you feel elated and make you feel smart. For all of those reasons, those actors are rare and hard to find, especially ones who want to live in rural Wisconsin. The sort of audacity and kind of mad genius that was Randall Dux Kim decision to drop APT in the middle of nowhere on a hillside in Wisconsin, that mad genius, that is not lost on me. It may look arbitrary to some, but the kind of isolation and focus it affords the actors and the artisans, all of us, to connect to the work without any distractions, and there are no distractions, it's remarkable and it's defining. It defines our very character in almost all areas of our theater. It defines who we hire. It makes us resourceful and patient. It makes us a community unto ourselves. But it's also very challenging. I'm not quite sure how to convey to you how complicated it is to get great talent to move to Spring Green, no matter how beautiful it is. Because no one gets rich and famous working for us. And that is the very reason, honestly, that a lot of people get into the arts to begin with and become actors. But that very same remote and glorious countryside, the uniqueness of it all, is what captured my imagination 23 years ago when my husband and I began working at APT. We recognized almost immediately, like many of you in the room here, what an incredible place it was, how magical it was. Look at how cute you were, Jimmy. You still are. Okay, sorry. We recognized how magical a place it was. As 1,000 people, if you've been there, how many people have been to APT? Oh, wow. So you know what I'm talking about. So 1,000 people walk up that hill at night. They walk through the woods, and you send to the top of that hill to listen to stories. I mean, that is utterly moving to me. Shakespeare echoes through those trees, and stars hang overhead, and this place calls us. APT, we all kind of surrender to that adventure, right? We allow ourselves to believe. I don't know what we're believing in, but it's something, almost an inexplicable thing when you actually feel it, when it happens. Like so many before me, we connected to the possibility of APT and what it could be. In fact, when I arrived at APT, due to the hard work of many people that came before me, it was already moving down the road of what it could be kind of road. My first year in 1995, APT did 110 performances of 4 plays and had more than 75,000 people in its audience. That was already pretty amazing for a little theater in the woods, right? This year we'll have 198 performances in 2 theaters of 9 productions and more than 110,000 people in the audience. And the economic impact on Southwest Wisconsin is striking. Over $10 million each year. We're the second most popular outdoor classical theater in the country, right here in the woods of Wisconsin. Over the years, well, that's because of you. You crazy people. Okay, that's because of you that we are. Okay, over the years, it became clear to me that matching great people with APT it required identifying and committing to long-term searches sometimes for years. When I was the casting director, I was kind of a stalker. It was very strange. I pretended I was actually, in my mind, working for the FBI, because the number of interviews and background checks I did on people, I mean, I talked to second-grade teachers to make sure. It's 6 months in the woods of Wisconsin. You get somebody who isn't conducive, it's a mess. So it was like finding a needle in a haystack. But I knew, because I had been an actor, there were so many good actors out there, and you just had to find the right ones, right? And if we found the right ones, we could offer them a home, which was absolutely unheard of. David Frank, our artistic director at the time, and we were building our core of our company. So finding those rare and selfless, slightly crazy, hardworking, humble, classically trained, kind, collaborative storytellers who liked mosquitoes and didn't mind that they weren't going to get rich, that they would be our future. And we formed our acting company, our core acting company. This was a defining moment for APT, a commitment to what would be the soul of it, I believe, our brand, our aesthetic, and the trust the audience had in us to be consistent and great rested on their shoulders. In turn, those actors, they had a voice and a place, a home, and my job was to manage them, their expectations, their dreams, their disappointments, their artistic lives, an honest relationship based in reality, and it is a difficult thing to do, manage people's dreams. What I quickly learned was that I needed to listen. They were scared. Everybody's scared. I needed to trust, to be honest, to be clear. Listen. Ask them to be remarkable every day, and listen. Actors are sadly trained to be and feel disposable. They're trained to distrust everyone, and to assume that everyone is out to use what they have and let them go. So the idea of being listened to, of feeling valued, of being expected to tell us what they actually felt, not what they thought they had to feel, what they needed, and then to be expected to hear the truth back. As an actor, you to be responsible for the whole of it instead of just your performance because it was your theater. This is a whole new world. This does not happen. It's a rare thing. It created a palpable, powerful bond, this connection, and as we retained great talent, we were consistently attracting more talent, and the word was out. We were a great place to work. Who knew? Spring Green, Wisconsin, in the middle of nowhere. This trust and collaborative approach was apparent in our rehearsal halls, and it directly affected our work on stage. And contrary to popular belief, an artist does not have to be miserable to do great work. Still, no one was getting rich, but they were happier. And this model taught us how to approach our entire staff. The idea that everyone had their own story. Everyone deserves to be heard. Everyone is scared. We started to conduct exit interviews with every person at the end of the season. That's upwards of 175 interviews every year. Every carpenter, apprentice, house staff, we asked what we could have done to make their work better. How could we make the audience's experience better, in their opinion? So many great ideas come from these exit interviews. We use every good idea and we make sure we tell them that was their idea, and they get credit and we listen. We work so hard to listen. We try not to defend. We know we're the bosses. We have all the power. So it's pretty clear it costs us very, very little to listen, to take their criticism of us. We try not to keep secrets because it's their work as much as it is ours. It's their theater. Soon after we started the exit interview process and this kind of managing up idea, we got together everyone from all parts of the theater, everyone interested, and we wrote down what we valued as an organization. It became our ethics document, or our important stuff document, or whatever people called it, our values document. And here it is. Yeah, we actually wrote it by hand. The process of creating this document was amazing. It took weeks, and we're still developing. We still add things to it. We review it every year at the top of the season. It's a living document, and it hangs almost in every office in the theater without being required to do so. We're really proud of this. David Frank, my mentor and predecessor, he was British, so he was a little bit like, what we believe on all the rules. It's rather forward. It's really kind of embarrassing, don't you think? And then he would say, but, you know, we don't always do it, do we? So I guess it really does help to be reminded, to be accountable. We try very hard to maintain these values, because you know what? They actually work. It actually makes life a lot better. I've been called Pollyanna my whole life, and we're called naive at APT a lot until people actually experience the culture and start to trust it and work with us. Many of them find it to be remarkably comforting. I truly think that people want to be asked to be great. I think we don't ask often enough. That we want to ask people to work with integrity, to be held accountable to each other, to take ownership. It makes a difference if everyone admits they're flawed, but that they're trying. It's the pretending that you're not flawed and the not trying that I find suffocating. Also, surprisingly or not, we learned that this is the way, it doesn't just apply to our artists, of course. They are also for our entire staff. And we practice them not just within departments, but across departments. Our controller is truly invested in the art, and our artists care deeply about the financial health of our institution. They're aware of it. They have the numbers. And this cross-pollination, this team approach to budgeting we find out, is wildly unusual in the theater world. And we have learned that by listening and working together and being accountable and collaborative and honest, trying every day, we're a healthier organization, financially and culturally. And it takes more work, and sometimes, yes, we go without a lot of things. We put out buying a new sewing machine, or building that big set, or hiring that actor we want to. We're fiscally conservative, sometimes to a fault, I admit. But we have learned that fiscal responsibility does not have to equal compromise. In fact, I posit that out of every nickel we get a quarter, most of the time at APT, and I posit that it leads to less compromise by relying on creativity of our artists and the creativity of our staff. And I can't tell you how many times the cut that we make to a set design becomes the most inspirational part of the process that makes the next design even better because of their ownership in the whole, their understanding of the entire theater. Our financial stability is something that we're really proud of. Sadly, many of our colleagues in the industry can only dream about it. thanks to you. This tenacity also, in turn, has allowed us freedom, real freedom, to choose how we grow, and most important, to choose what we do. So let's be real. Every theater in the country has to take money into account, every arts organization, when choosing their season. But for us, this is because Randy Kim was kind of a genius, classical theater. For us, those choices are pretty great. I mean, maybe we can't do Titus Andronicus every other year, probably not the best choice. We have to settle for Midsummer Night's Dream, or Pygmalion, or Samuel Beckett, or Tom Stoppard. I mean, these are pretty great compromises. And this tenacity in our budgeting right now has allowed us to get to a point where we can take the next big step, like securely and confidently. Actually, we're calling it the next great stage. In true APT style, it's not just because we want new things. That's not how it works out there. Our stage is literally falling down around us, and the engineers have told us we have to rebuild it. It's a true statement. It's actually falling down. So it's all braced up if you want to go back there and see it. So the day after the last show on the Hill this season closes on October 3rd or 4th, we will begin construction the very next day. And we will, I promise, be finished for the season next year. I'm knocking on wood. In addition to rebuilding the stage and making it more flexible and exciting, we'll be renovating the lobby, making it more beautiful and accessible. And we'll be expanding our backstage work areas to be safer and more productive. And we're going to build a new rehearsal hall so that every play that's in rehearsal actually has an indoor rehearsal space outside, out of the elements, away from the rain and the bugs, and air conditioning for everybody while they rehearse. So for years, we've embraced our humble beginnings and that sort of summer camp, that feeling we have at APT. We love it, and we think it has made us scrappy and resourceful. It's made us better. And the changes we're making aren't luxurious at all, I promise. I mean, we won't lose our edge. We'll still be scrappy. But we'll be safe and productive and comfortable for our staff and our audience. A lot of it may even not be that obvious to you, but it will be absolutely noticeable in our work. And over the last 37 years, we have grown up. We're a major regional theater now. And with the next great stage, our facilities will finally be able to reflect that. And we're very proud and excited about that. Thanks. We're lucky that we get to do what we do. That's our closing night. If you've never been there for closing night, you should really think about coming. It's a beautiful night on the stage. Everybody that works at the theater comes up on stage and takes a bow together, and we thank our audience, all the muffled mittens clapping. It's like unlike any other night. We're lucky we get to do what we do, and it's an amazing place to work. As artists in the theater, I believe we are charged with making the world a better place, to serve our audience, by attempting to increase their capacity to comprehend their very own existence of being a human being, to tell stories and create community with our audience every night as we laugh and cry and think together. What we do, tell stories, makes theater. I believe it's incredibly important. And without live theater, I think we lose a little bit of our ability to see ourselves and others, to walk through in their shoes. And I'm a steward of that work at APT as the artistic director. But I can't do it alone. Of course, I cannot create that art and all these productions. I must have empowered, creative, collaborative, happy community of artists and artisans and staff. So I take very seriously that I am there to serve them and to give them all the support and resources, freedom and trust to be and do remarkable work. Really great work with integrity and purpose, like my brother Tony said. He wasn't wrong. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Is there any questions?
Have a mic here and a mic here.
No.
You've covered it. Oh, there's one back here. Dora. Right? Straight back.
Thank you for a phenomenal presentation. Can you talk a little bit about your diversity efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's something that I think that has been, because of our isolation, our geographic isolation, it's been something that's been, and the need to survive, as many people who have worked there in the past know. We've worked really long and hard to stay alive, right? And now that we have some footing and we are a little bit better known, Have been asked and actually have sought out for the last few years partners in the inclusive conversation about diversity, and talk to people who actually come to visit us and see our work and see how we're working, to see what it is that we could do to make ourselves more attractive. It's a rural Wisconsin town, so everyone looks the same. Everyone is the same in a lot of ways. We're really economically diverse at the theater, but we're not culturally diverse. So that was the first consideration, was how we talk to people about the truth of what it is to live in Spring Green, Wisconsin for 6 months, when most of the people who we're going after have careers, because we have a real desire to have, like Greta Oglesby and Johnny Lee Davenport, Gavin Lawrence. These are actors that can work anywhere right now. They're actors who have a choice to be anywhere right now. And to convince them to move to Spring Green was something I was loath to do. I wanted to sit with them, have them learn about us, have them be interested in what it was that we were doing, and really make a one-on-one conversation happen. And that started about 3 years ago. I identified a few directors that I've been trying to talk to about, actually, because what we do at APT is so different than anywhere. This idea of a company. So you don't just drop in an actor for 6, 8, 10 weeks. They are in 3 shows, and they must decide to live there for 5.5 months. So it's a very different approach. I did spend a half an hour on the phone with Greta Oglesby, who was at the Guthrie at the time doing a play in Minneapolis, and I, for half an hour, tried to convince her not to come. I wanted to make sure she was making serious choices about, and she said, "I've heard the work is amazing, and I want to be a part of what you're trying to do," which is real investigation of what it is to be a person of color in classical theater, instead of a peripheral kind of conversation. I don't know how to do things unless they're all the way. I really wish I could. I really wish I had a way to kind of skim along the top of this, but it's just not how we roll. It's just not the way we can do our work. So we are just starting this conversation for real, and our apprentice company, which is very, very much about identifying young actors of color who love poetry, which is a very different thing than just wanting to be on television. Not necessarily a better thing, just a different thing. And so trying to identify those actors and make a contact with them and bring them in and train them for a summer to see if it's something that they actually would like to do with their lives in a real way. We can afford ourselves. They're really isolated there, so there's not much else to do but contemplate those things. So it turns out to be kind of a unique experience for them, I think. And we've found some real growth in that in the last few years. Yes?
Nancy Young. This is the 3rd time I've heard you, and I just love your stories and love to hear, even if you've said them before. I hope you...
I repeat myself.
Well, it's with a style that's really fun to listen to. I'm wondering how you may even have a broader audience of people who don't come to APT and be able to share with them this story, because I think it would bring them along, and I don't know what thought you've given to that, however.
It's something we actually talk about a lot at APT, is about this idea of a national conversation, or have a national reputation. And anybody who works in the theater understands the resources it takes to get the New York Times to come visit, or to get a larger presence in publications and such like that. We have just never, ever been able to, or interested in seeking out that kind of national reputation. We really want to be known for our work, and there's just not enough funds for that. But I am always open to, I'll speak anywhere, anytime about APT. So if you have an idea about where I could go with it, people that aren't already coming, you guys are all coming already, so thank you for that. But if you have any ideas, I'm happy to continually spread the word. I do think it's an extraordinary place, and not just because I work there. When we moved there, I said 1 year, I'm staying in this, I grew up in a town like 1,200 people, I'm never staying here, and here I am. So clearly there's something going on there I believe in. So yeah, I would love to at any point. I just know that kind of publicity that other theaters can afford to do or have afforded to do is just not something that we have pursued. We are making a growing reputation and in the country. Why Greta Oglesby decided that she would come audition for us was because she had heard about us. It's kind of an APT way. It's sustainable, slow growth, organic, makes sense for the whole. But yes, please sign me up anywhere you want me to speak. Anyone else?
One more question, and then I think we're done.
Thanks for staying.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I'm Jocelyn Riley. We're
Hi.
subscribers, and we love APT. And so does the Wall Street Journal, by the way.
Woo! Thank God, Terry Teachout, he loves us.
Right,
yes.
he really does. I'm just curious about your relationship with the people of Spring Green.
It has definitely changed over time. Just like everything in the world, it's about experience, right? It's about meeting someone and spending some time with them. And I think that because of the nature of the finances at APT for so long, a lot of people couldn't afford to live in the town. It's just the way it was. And once people started to, people in the company could actually live in the town, we all automatically were on the school board and on the village board and she's on the school board right now again. We all just started to be part of the community, and that experience, I mean, the town always supported. There was a group of people in the town that always supported it, but it's a tiny little town with not many resources. So we just decided that we were going to live there, and we were going to make the community our home, and that changed the face of our relationship with APT, the town and APT, in a very, very different way. It's a great, if you've never been out to spend time in the actual town, it's a great little town, and a community that's kind of outrageously generous and outrageous. They're kind of, it should be, anybody remember that show? It was the Northern Exposure show. That's what I always think. I think Spring Green's like. It's like this strange little wonderful community. So come out and visit. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.